All right, folks, we are back for another Giants-Commanders preview. This time, it's being played at MetLife Stadium. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast. Hope you guys, again, are doing well. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Share out, do all the good stuff. Share out on the Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. Share that link out. We're trying to get more downloads and, of course, more views on YouTube, subscriptions, all that other stuff. Depending on how pissed you are with the Yankees end of the season, you can buy a Fire Cashman Fire Boot and Tee off of our online shop, which should be in the YouTube description, or it should be showing up somewhere along the channel. And oh, by the way, must I mention, have you guys kept your blood pressure down? Because, of course, if you're a Yankee fan and you're a Giant fan, those two really haven't mixed well as of the last few days. We'll just keep it at that, the last few days. So, that's that. But the New York Giants are playing the Commanders this week. They play at home, and then they go out on the road to Germany. Yes, Germany. And then they have the bye week. So we only have a week and a half-ish more of football before we hit the bye week. And Washington has completely, I don't want to say completely changed their team, but I know they're rivals, right? I know they're rivals, but the asterisk or the quote next to it. But their uprising has really, it's I admire it. Let's put it that way. I admire their uprising because I originally had them at 6 wins this season, right? Around 6 wins. And right now they're at 6 wins, 6-2. And this is a team that's leading the division. There's things they could obviously get better at. We'll talk about it. But Jaden Daniels looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football compared to how many weeks ago when we played him and he was taking sacks. And, you know, he's a mobile quarterback, so he's going to be doing that. But it just, and I don't mean to go on the quarterback barrage again, but it just shows when you have a superstar or just a star quarterback, an elite quarterback, what it can do for you, right? How they can elevate the team. Again, this was a guy coming in. It's not like he had huge aura, like he didn't have the Caleb Williams attention, but still a Heisman finalist if he didn't win the Heisman. I don't know the statistics and the awards on that one. But he came in. Team was expected to win 6 games, something like that, rebuilding year for the Commanders. The offensive line looks good. Other units are getting better. So, Washington fans, you have something to be proud of. And that's what I got to say about that. As for the Giants, I said it on the Pittsburgh Steelers recap. I said, you know, it's just going to be the same thing every week. And I feel for my Giant fans in that light because this has been 10 of the last 12 years, let's say. Let's see. Let me do math here. 2016 and 2022 minus that. So there's that. Now let's go to the injury report. Let's start with Washington. It seems like as of this very moment, they don't have any game statuses, so I'm going to look on Twitter. But for the Giants, they have a few injury concerns. Of course, why would it not concern special teams? Okay, so I have it here. Cornelius Lucas is out. Okay, so Cornelius Lucas is out with an ankle injury. He's the starting left tackle, so you'll probably see Brandon Coleman again. And then Brian Robinson Jr. is questionable, but that's pretty much it. Now, as for the New York Football Giants, Braceford Wheaton is doubtful with an Achilles injury. Interesting, right? Achilles, you really don't want to fuck with that. Could end the season. You have Ty Summers, questionable with an ankle injury. He is on special teams, not really like a so-called linebacker. But I was talking about special teams more so as the kicker and the punter. Now, Jamie Gillen's out with a hamstring injury, so it's going to be Matt Hack again. He's getting closer from what I hear to being able to punt again, so maybe after the bye week he comes back or something along those lines. Kind of interesting that they didn't put him on IR to start. And then you got Greg Joseph, who's out with an abdomen injury, which is interesting, right? Wednesday, Thursday, you heard nothing, and then Friday, he's out. So the Irishman, Jude McAtomney, At least I think that's how you pronounce his name. He will be kicking for the first time in his NFL career. He'll be making his NFL debut. So I'm pretty intrigued to see what that looks like. A kicker wearing number 99. If that's his number still. I don't know if anyone else on the Giants has stolen that number. I know Leonard Williams was that number last year before he got dealt. But Mr. Makatomney, let's see, kicker. He is wearing number 99. So that's going to be an interesting look at very collegiate level. So that's the injury report for the Giants. That's the injury report for the Washington Commanders. And by the way, of course, as per usual, it's always a movie when Corey comes on. We have Corey Sanchez on the WARPATH in the second half of our show, so please tune into that as he talks about how Washington was 0-1 coming in against us, and some things they needed to work out to now they're 6-2. So I have to again give credit when credit is needed to be given. But nonetheless, let's move on. So the Commanders, again, they've shot up in the rankings. So they're third in total yards on offense. They're ninth in passing offense, third in rushing, and third in points per game. Defensively, they've gotten better. They're not great defensively, but they've gotten better. 13th in total yards, 6th against the pass, 25th against the run. So that might be where the Giants need to attack a little bit, and it kind of fits a little bit, but we'll talk about that and things to look for. I'm not going to waste breath on that now. I'm not going to spoil it. 20th, I'm jumping way fucking ahead here. 25th in rushing defense, 14th in points per game, 29th in pass percentage, 20th in pass percentage on first down, 4th in run percentage, and 10th in run percentage on first down. So they are still a very good rushing team. Austin Eckler hasn't really seen much of the rushing action compared to Brian Robinson Jr., so if anyone wants to go on the fantasy waiver wire, I don't know why anyone would drop Brian Robinson, but it's just a thought. Then again, too, I feel like I made that same exact stupid decision all the way back a couple of weeks ago, but that's not the point right now. So, in blitz percentage, they are 4th, so that's pretty interesting to me, right? I thought they were a little lower, but that's how they're going to get to Daniel Jones. Their edge rushers aren't great. The best they have is Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, a couple of cast-offs from the Cowboys, but you do have a non-Andrew Thomas left tackle. So that's where the Giants are going to have to really help Chris Hubbard out. 6th in pressure percentage and 7th in sacks in the NFL. So again, this makeshift unit of, Dante Fowler and Frankie Louvu at the linebacker spot and Bobby Wagner getting 2 sacks. Everyone's getting in on the fun. It's not, this guy has 9 sacks, this guy has 6 sacks, whatever. Everybody seems to be getting on the fun because it's 4.5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1.5, 1, 1, 1. So they are, again, 7th in the NFL in sacks. Now you take a look at the glum side. You got Daniel Jones in the Giants offense, 26th in total yards per game, 23rd in passing offense, 24th in rushing offense, and 31st in points per game. It was a little high a couple of weeks ago, but everything has kind of shot down back to reality. Defensively, they're 17th in total yards, 27th against the run, so that might be a problem. I don't think it might be. It will be a problem this game. 8th in passing defense and 11th in points per game. On offense, 8th in pass percentage, 10th in pass percentage on first down, 25th in run percentage, and 20th in run percentage on first down. As far as blitz pressure rate and all that good stuff in sacks, they're first in the NFL in sacks. The Jets are right behind them for some reason. Kind of surprised in that because the Jets, they've been a terrible team like us, and the thing is with them is their edge rushers have not shown up. Will McDonald has. Clemens, when he wants to. Quinnen Williams is not the same. But the Giants are 13th in blitz percentage and 14th in pressure percentage. So getting into the analysis, I guess we could start with the Giants offense is running to Hubbard's strengths. And this is part of the things to look for. Running to Chris Hubbard's strengths. Now, Chris Hubbard, PFF, and I know PFF's not the greatest source of advanced analytics to trust because they could be subjective and a lot of people don't trust them. They gave a extremely low blocking grade on the pass side for Chris Hubbard, but on the running side, they gave him one of the best. So whether you agree, disagree with PFF, you think they're trash, you think they're good, you think they're God, you think they're not God, you think they're Satan, whatever. However you feel, those metrics, because they're so extreme on each side, do have a little bit of relevance to them. There are points to be made. And Chris Hubbard blew some holes open for Tyrone Tracy last week. Now, it's actually pretty interesting, because I know how the Giants handle injuries, that Tyrone Tracy will be healthy this week. As you know, last time we played Washington, Devin Singletary, he had his first fumble of the season, which wasn't great timing because the Giants were going down the field. But you have Tyrone Tracy. I don't know that he's going to get as many carries as last game, because you don't want to have him in concussion protocol again. You don't want him to have a relapse. So my hunches are probably going to go Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. And again, that's probably what works for the Giants offense, and a multitude of things they have to do on defense. But if you run to Hubbard's strengths, maybe it's the left side, the right side, whatever, and you do your gap scheme shit, right? You do your gap scheme runs, the duos, all that stuff, and Tracy just breaks open. And maybe you could put some zone in there too. But this team is mostly a gap run team, so you don't want to say, okay, one good player on the left side, namely Chris Hubbard, he's a guy that can run zone, but the rest of the offensive line can run gap, and that's pretty much their forte. No, you want to kind of even that out. So I think that the Giants' best offensive plan is probably running the football. Tyrone Tracy, that stuff. And I'm not saying that you can't pass the football. You have to pass the football. But the Giants don't win a lot, and I'm talking objectively. There's just probably a stat out there somewhere. The Giants don't win a lot when Daniel Jones throws over 30 to 40 times a game. And this is a game I'm going to feel that he doesn't have to do that. So the Giants better not put him in that position. As for the pass blocking side of the offense, I would still give Chris Hubbard some chips from the running backs and the tight ends. Illuminor's not going to need it, I don't think. I think he had a decent week considering who he was playing against in TJ Watt. I thought the interior did decently. Schmitz, little struggles here and there and around the square. But I'm not worried about the offensive line. I'm just worried about Hubbard. So Theo Johnson, Daniel Bellinger, Chris Mannertz, those guys I expect to do some chipping, some blocking on that end, helping them out. And, of course, Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, too. And, not to mention, this is a heavy blitz team. So I would imagine that it's not just blitzes, it's stunts. And that's where Chris Hubbard and John Runyon need to figure out their chemistry a little bit. Because last week it was, Hubbard and Azudu they're sharing snaps. This week, I would bet you that Chris Hubbard took majority, if not all, the left tackle snaps in practice, and that's where John Runyon and him could work a little bit and make each other better. That's what I say. But that's as far as the passing side. I would still look, if Malik Neighbors is in one-on-one situations, I think the Giants are going to throw that. They were pretty good on third down last week, but again, the offense wasn't great, 18 points. You can't really clap for progress on that note. So defensively, honestly, is where I'm going to have the most notes, because last time defensively, you could say, they gave up 21 points. That's not bad. 7 field goals, right. What was my main complaint about that game, though, was the fact that the Giants gave up 38 fucking minutes in time of possession. They couldn't get off the field on third down to save a life. So there were multiple aspects there that the Giants needed to adjust on in future games. And I think one of them needed to be third down, time of possession, your edge rushers playing a part, because they didn't play a part. Dex did. But as far as everyone else, Tibbs was silent, Burns was silent. And they really woke up against the Cleveland Browns. But considering the unit that they have now, again, this is a very good pass blocking offensive line unit, which is interesting considering that Bobby Johnson's the O-line coach. So I don't know if it's the market, it's this, it's that. Maybe the Giants have a fucking hex on them. But again, interesting. I don't know that it's a coincidence. Can't tell you. But I can tell you that the Giants will probably put more emphasis on third down defense. How? I don't know. Will they just say, okay, we'll stay in the soft zone? Will we go to man coverage a little bit more? I don't know how much of Terry McLaurin you're going to stop, but do the best, in my personal opinion, to stop these running backs, because I'm not talking the running game, I'm talking the passing game. I mean, everyone's getting a little bit of the chunk. Austin Eckler out of the backfield, he's been pretty good. Noah Brown obviously caught that Hail Mary. That was a fucking miracle, but that was a great play by the Commanders. Zach Ertz has been getting there a little bit more, so Tyler Nubin sure up that matchup, Terry McLaurin. And I think also on third down, it's not just about who you cover on the back end, is that the Giants have to fucking tackle. I think they had 19 missed tackles that week, which is not something that's going to win you football games. Get Jaden Daniels down, contain. That's step one, is contain, right? I don't know if the Giants want to do more blitzes, if they want to have Simmons as a spy or this, that, and the third, but contain Jaden Daniels, and if he tries to rush out the pocket, you just collapse the pocket. Dex, I know, can do that. I think Chapman can do that to a bit of an extent. DJ Davidson can do that to a bit of an extent. And then you got Brian Burns and Azeez Ojulari, who's been playing fucking lights out the last few weeks. He's second on the team in sacks with 6. So I'm really looking forward to that. The main linebacker will need to step up in this situation. I will say this, right? If you're going to put a spy on Jaden Daniels, don't let it be Bobby Okereke. And we loved Okereke last year, but I think what has happened to him is kind of what happened to Blake Martinez, but it's kind of different. Regression, but I think it's a scheme change, right? He was more fit for Wink Martindale's scheme, and he was playing lights out, arguably should have been a Pro Bowler, to where Micah McFadden, he doesn't have to attack these gaps, everyone's just doing their thing. It's kind of like why Deontay Johnson in the preseason exploded, because he wasn't taking on blockers. Micah McFadden really hasn't taken on blockers too much. He's just been there to tackle. He does have a lot of missed tackles, but he's been more efficient than Bobby Okereke. I would not put Masal there. I would not put Darius Masal on Jaden Daniels. I would either do... See, there's two elements. There's the speed element and the body element. I would go with the speed element for this one. I would make sure Isaiah Simmons probably goes out there, and he focuses on the speed of Jaden Daniels as a spy. That's where you can put McFadden in that group, to where if you want to focus more on body type, you probably go with Darius Masal or Bobby Okereke. So that's, again, containing Jaden Daniels, contain him in the pocket, get him down. My opinion, you'll probably have more sacks than legitimate quarterback hits. Not that that's actually possible, but I think you'll see Jaden Daniels taking a bad sack as more likely than him rushing out of the pocket, throwing the ball away. If he rushes out of the pocket, it's going to be a big play. We saw that in week 2. We've seen it a couple of weeks in a row. But they also do screens really well. That's what the Giants could not really put a X on and try to contain. They couldn't contain the screen. So that's where Austin Eckler comes in. That's where Zach Ertz comes in. Is they're not just players that, this, that, and the third. They can run routes and stuff. I mean, Eckler, not really, but Ertz he's still a big body tight end. But Ertz and Eckler, those guys are going to be the bread and butter of those screen plays. And that's where the Giants really need to focus in on. It's not just tight end and running back screens. There's going to be wide receiver screens as well. The Giants were getting beat by that in week 2. So they need an emphasis on that. And overall, just time of possession. The Washington Commanders are 9th in time of possession across the league. They're also I think they're 3rd, right? Let's see. 4th, actually, in third down conversion percentage. So the Giants, again, will need to shore that up. Couple of plays last week, didn't like. As far as plays against Washington, hell yeah, I didn't like some plays against Washington. The Giants rank as a 7th overall opponent in third down defense, which is pretty good. So you're going to have the cream of the crop go against each other. But third down defense, time of possession, containing, screen plays, and having Jaden Daniels not escape the pocket. I think that's going to be very important for the Giants. I know, obviously, at the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to offense and how far, once again, the Giants can move the ball. What mistakes is Daniel Jones going to make? Who's going to drop the football? The offense has not been efficient. It's not been good. The defense has done their job, and they can't hold on for fucking 60 minutes a game. They can't. They can't be on the field for that long either. So that's part of their problem. That's part of the offense's problem. So moving on to players to watch statistically, we go to Jaden Daniels, right? At least in the passing game, 7 touchdowns, 2 INTs, about 217 yards per game. But you could accept that a little bit for the reasons that, he's more of a running quarterback, and he combines that together. Plus, he's a rookie, so you have that excuse, but he's still playing some very good football. 71.8 completion percentage, that's very good. 1736 yards and about 8.4 yards per throw. Now, the rushing offense, which is one of the better rushing offenses in the league, you got Brian Robinson Jr., who's got 6 touchdowns on the season. He's got 2 plays over 20 yards, 461 yards total, 4.6 yards per pop. You go to Jaden Daniels, who obviously is a part of their rushing game. 74 attempts, 424 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, and 3 big plays over 20. So you combine that, 4 touchdowns and 7 touchdowns, that's 11 touchdowns on the ground, combined with 2 turnovers. He hasn't lost a fumble yet this season, so maybe the Giants ought to cash in. They haven't been the team to intercept. I don't think they've had an interception since week 1. That's sad. But forcing fumbles and that stuff, that's what they've been doing the last few weeks. Especially on Russell Wilson last week. They did get a key turnover. You look at the receiving core, Terry McLaurin, 4 touchdowns, 579 yards, and about 72 yards per game. Then you move to Zach Ertz, 1 touchdown, 345 yards, 10.8 yards per catch. Noah Brown, 258 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 plays over 20 yards. Austin Eckler has had some big passing play receptions. He's got 5 catches over 20 yards, which is really, really unorthodox for a running back, but the way they use him is just really creative. And I'll tell you this, right? I never saw Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Of course, he came in as a head coach, coming from Texas Tech, I believe. I believe he was at Texas Tech. And, obviously he didn't do too well with the Cardinals, but it seems like his creativity, I don't know, he might be back in the loop for a head coaching job. So that's the receiving end. That's the offensive end in terms of targets, receptions, all that sort of shit. So we move to the offensive line, which has been a pretty efficient unit for most of the season for Washington. Brandon Coleman, who I suspect is going to get the start, he's a better run blocker than pass blocker. He's got allowed 2 sacks on the season. PFF will actually let you look at pass blocking and run blocking grades now, which is a little interesting. They grade him about average at the total level. So you move on, right? Obviously, Cornelius Lucas is not playing. Nick Allegretti, 3 penalties, 1 sack. He's better as a pass blocker. Tyler Biadasz, 1 penalty, 0 sacks, pass blocker. He's better at that. Sam Cosmi, 5 penalties, 1 sack. He's also better at pass blocking. And Andrew Wiley, 5 penalties, 0 sacks, pass blocking. So they don't credit a lot of sacks to the offensive line. Jaden Daniels has been sacked 17 times, and a number of those have been on him because he is a running quarterback. So you move over, and you go to the defensive side of the football. Dante Fowler, 4.5 sacks. He's their lead sacker, 14 tackles, 6 TFLs, 8 quarterback pressures, 5 QB hits, and a pass deflection. You got the linebacker, former Jet and former Panther, Frankie Louvu. 4 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 5 quarterback pressures, 5 quarterback hits, 1 pass deflection, a forced fumble. And you look at Bobby Wagner, he's still playing really well for his age. 2 total sacks, 69 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss. Dorrance Armstrong's got 3 sacks on the season, 2 TFLs, and a forced fumble as well to go along with 14 tackles. And you move into the secondary, and of course, in a minute, I'll talk about the defensive lineman. Benjamin St-Juste, he's still struggling a little bit statistically. 3 touchdowns allowed, 111.6 passer rating, 64% completion, 434 yards, and 36 tackles, 7 pass deflections, if I didn't already mention that. But the rookie Mike Sainer still out of Michigan. 4 pass deflections, 40 tackles, 4 touchdowns given up, 126.6 passer rating, 313 yards, 69.7 completion percentage allowed. And then you take a look at probably the best corner, and he's coming over from Dallas and before that Miami, Noah Igbenogany. 4 pass deflections, 60.6 completion percentage allowed, 2 touchdowns, 92.5 passer rating, 156 yards. And again, going back to the defensive linemen, they do have Jalen Holmes now, who's coming over from the Jets. Jerzon Newton has a sack on the season, 14 tackles, 2 for a loss. Deron Payne, 1.5 sacks. Jonathan Allen's got 2 sacks, 2 TFLs for Jonathan Allen, 1 for Deron Payne, and about 15 tackles each. So there's still a notable force in the middle that the Giants have to worry about. So you can still argue that this is a big game for John Michael Schmitz in the interior to get their rust off last game, because I don't think they did that bad, but again, I think they could do better, of course. And as far as so I think that pretty much does that. And also, Jonathan Allen's not even playing because he's on injured reserve. So I knew somebody was out from that D-line, and it just happens to be him. So, moving on to keys to win. Number one, I think it's going to be time of possession. I know that it's a very interesting way to put it on the keys to win is number one, but the Giants could not get off the field the last game against the Commanders, and with the offense not doing so well, they need as many opportunities as possible. So they're down time of possession. I'm going to really rank that within one. Number two is I'll go with Jaden Daniels. And again, I know I'm putting more emphasis on the defense, but it just seems like we know what the Giants' offense is. It's Malik Neighbors, couple throws to Slayton, run through Tyrone Tracy, and So my second one is don't let Jaden Daniels run all over you. You got to contain him, keep him in the pocket, keep him as a pocket passer, force him to throw downfield, make the plays needed. And number three, I was originally going to say DJ to Neighbors, which, could be true. I definitely think they'll hook up a couple of times. But also as well, I'm going to say run the football. Because we're talking about time of possession, and the Giants need to take care of that very much so. So in regards to time of possession, I'm going to say run the football efficiently. The Giants haven't done that consistently this season. Tyrone Tracy brought a burst last week. You hope that Singletary takes some rust off as well. So time of possession and third down, containing Jaden Daniels and running the football. So with that said, folks, we will send it now to the discussion with my man, Corey Sanchez from On the Warpath. All right, for the second half of the show, of course, it's always a movie when me and Corey get together and talk about the Giants in Washington. And it always feels like when it comes to the second meeting, I'm always rooting for Washington to win for draft position. And, sometimes that ends up making the Giants win. So who the hell knows? But the first question I'll ask you, Corey, is obviously we saw each other in week 2. What the hell has been the keys to the turnaround of the Washington Commanders and you guys ending up in first place?
Mindset, man. I think it's everything is new. It's that new car smell, right? Dan Quinn comes in here. He brings in Cliff Kingsbury on the offensive side of the ball to work with Jaden Daniels and that college offense. And it seems like that college offense is taking the teams that they need to school, right? You look on the other side of the ball, Joe Witt Jr. They've had a slower start, but they're starting to put it together. The secondary is still a liability, but I think for the most part, what you see with this team is they're about the business. Like they say what they're going to do and they do what they're going to say. And I think it's worked out perfectly for them. They've got a locker room that is full of guys that are hungry, that want to win, and it's worked out. It's working out pretty good. 6-2 for the first time in 16 years. I was joking the other day with somebody. I was a senior in high school the last time they started out this hot, but it's the back end that kind of worries me because we lost, I think, 6 out of our final 8 games and finished 8-8 that year under the elite Jim Zorn. So, we'll see when it comes to. But I think Dan Quinn, the mindset brother, all that Alex is what has worked for Washington. That's the secret sauce for us, and of course, JD5, man, the kid's balling out there. I mean, you saw it. The world, we saw the bomb hit all around the world, and we're not talking about what the Yankees did in Game 4, but we're talking about what Jane Daniels did against the Chicago Bears. So, the kid's got it. He's unbothered by the moment. And him, Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, they're the reason why we are having the success that we are here in really the first half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And before we go into offense, defense specific, do you think that the Commanders should or could make a deal at the trade deadline because, of course, they're in first place?
Have you seen how Benjamin St. Juice played? You've seen our team. Have you seen the boy? Emmanuel Forbes looks like a poster child for Feed the Children, Alex. Like we are starving out here. Yes, we should do something. We need to do something, especially in that secondary. Benjamin St. Juice, he doesn't need to be the top corner. Emmanuel Forbes, he's only good at picking up opponents after the game is over with. So yes, we need help definitely in the secondary. If they could, maybe add another wide receiver to help out Terry McLaurin, because I think teams are starting to understand it's Terry McLaurin, and then the rest of the guys who are you gonna let beat you, Alameda Zaccheaus or Zach Ertz in that point at the tight end spot. So yes, I hope that they see this, especially if you win on Sunday. You've got to make a move, because we know winning is fleeting in the NFL, as you saw back in 2022 when you all ran the tables and had a wild card berth in the playoffs and beat the Vikings, right? You can't sit on your laurels. You've always got to go. If you got a hot hand, you got to do the best to go forward, because no matter how you built, it's win now. You can't wait. You can't hold off winning. So whatever makes the team better.
Yeah, of course. So, specifically as a quarterback, we saw Jaden Daniels. He played well in week 2, but he's played far better in the past few weeks. What has he done differently in these past few weeks since the week 2 game? Since really the start of the season?
I think he's seeing the field better. I think that Cliff Kingsbury's got the game plan for him. One, they're not putting so much on him. Like, I think if you watch any of the Bears game, Caleb Williams had a lot put on his plate, right? They're trying to put him in a box to what they want him to do in the system, and not what how well he can play in the system and what his strengths are, right? So, and I think that's what Kingsbury's done. They work well with that running back room, but I feel like ever since that Cincinnati, he's gotten comfortable, and it's just building on week after week after week.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving to the offensive line position, I looked at the injury report. Cornelius Lucas looks to be out this week. Will it be Brendan Coleman starting at left tackle, and how has he progressed?
Brandon Coleman will most likely start. He was in concussion protocol last week, so he missed the game against the Bears. He's progressed nicely. There's a lot of hope in Washington that we hit on a day 2 pick, and it's your left tackle, and it's your franchise left tackle. I think Youngin, uh, he is shifty. He's good size. Him and Cornelius Lucas were splitting time, but over the last couple weeks before he had the concussion, he had started seeing slightly more snaps than Cornelius Lucas, because they were just basically, it was a swinging gate pretty much at that tackle spot. And I think that was a lot because Brandon Coleman missed all of preseason, so they were trying to get his feet under. And that's the brilliance of this coaching staff, Alex. They're not forcing square pegs in the round holes, as you've seen watching Washington under Ron Rivera, last year under Eric Bieniemy. It was just like, why are we doing this if it doesn't make sense to expose your young kids, your young players to regression? And I think that's worked out perfectly for the Burgundy and Gold so far. And Brandon Coleman has looked the part of a pretty good left tackle. Now, he's no Trent Williams or anything like that, but I think he can be really good in this offense. And you know as well as I do, you don't always need elite offensive linemen. You need very good offensive linemen to slightly above average offensive linemen working in cohesion, and that can create a great offensive line for you.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving to the defensive side of the ball, how bad did the Jonathan Allen injury sting?
Not at all. Not at all. It didn't sting at all. I think you had a guy who's ready to move on. We saw that last year. Johnny Newton, the second round pick out of Illinois, has played well. Got his first sack last week. Fadarian Mathis is healthy. He was the second round pick in 2022. He's been playing good ball. Deron Payne's still there. John Allen, to be honest with you, if you watched the game last week and the game before last week, he really wasn't missed. I think on the field, and I do believe I've said this multiple times. I'm gonna say it here. He, I think we've seen his last days in a burgundy and gold uniform when he got hurt in Baltimore. I think that's it for Jonathan Allen.
Wow. Okay. Um, Moving to other parts of the defensive line and all that stuff. So the Commanders, obviously, Chase Young was traded last season, Montez Sweat as well. So there's not too many big names outside of Deron Payne, and of course, you mentioned the rookie and Johnny Newton. But as I was mentioning, there's not like big names, but the Commanders are top 10 in sacks. Has the scheme that Joe Witt has produced allowed everyone to join in on the sack party?
Yeah, you look at Dante Fowler, who even had a pick six against Carolina. Cleveland Farrell, who was a first round pick as well. Dante Fowler was a first round pick. I think we have at least four former first round picks on this defensive line. And then you add in on that backside at linebacker, Frankie Louvu, who can play kind of like a poor man's Micah Parsons and wreaks havoc. He was on the injury report, but he should go tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of get on that sack part. Dorrance Armstrong, who was in Dallas last year as well, they have just been it's not just one guy, and I think that's great. At first, it looked like we were like, whoa, against Tampa. It's like we can't get to the quarterback, and I do think a lot of that had to do with them not playing together, and because any defense they got to be cohesive, like an offensive line, and I think the same thing was with like with Coleman, I said he didn't play a lot. These guys didn't play together for the majority of the preseason, so it took them to get time to get into their groove. But this defensive line, man, they uh, they play together. They play fast. They play physical, and they play furious, kind of like what Joe Witt is trying to establish. He said back before the Arizona game, he said this defense is close. I don't think anybody realized how close the defense was to being pretty good. And this defense is climbing up the charts. If we can get just average play from this defense down the stretch, you're going to see a force to be reckoned with in late December and hopefully early into mid January.
Of course. So before I ask about the total secondary progression, which I know hasn't been good, judging by your first few comments, um, the Commanders are top 10 in pass defense statistically.
Hmm.
How does that fare? Is that because of the pass rush production, the linebacker play? What's the reason behind that?
Um, oh gosh, you're gonna get me in trouble for saying this. I think it's been the quality of opponents. For
Okay.
I think Arizona was struggling. We whooped them up. Of course, you saw the blowout against Cleveland, the blowout against Carolina. Two teams that, as Charles Barkley would say, terrible, Kenny. Um, but in all seriousness, though, they held Chicago to 15 points, and they were lighting up their opponents as well, winning consecutive games. So I think it's a combination, but I think this team believe in each other. I do believe that Bobby Wagner, he's starting to hit his midseason stride. He looked a little slow at the beginning of the season. Age kind of catching up with him. Frankie Louvu, like I mentioned, he's been really well. Our safety room has been okay. Quan Martin, who's the second round pick last year out of Illinois, he has come on and played very well for the team. Jeremy Chin, who's in Carolina. he's come on and he's played. He actually had help with that forced fumble against you all in week 2, which is a funny story. I had went FedEx Field was so terrible. I went to go get a drink of something to drink, and I missed that fumble coming back to my seat. So yeah, I think it's an amalgamation of things. But Joe Witt said it the best. He said we don't have 11 starters. We got 16 guys who are just going to go out there and play fast and do the job. To basically paraphrase him. So I think it's a combination of all three levels outside of the cornerback.
And as far as the cornerback room goes, you mentioned Forbes isn't doing good. Benjamin St. Juste isn't playing well. Is that a scheme thing? Is it quality of players? And also, how has Mike Sainer still progressed?
Well, Mikey's done really well. And Noah Igbenogany, he was a former first round pick of Miami, played in Dallas last year, and they played well. Um, Noah plays good in the slot, so does Mikey. Mikey played a little bit on the outside against Baltimore, and he struggled a little bit, but I think you could see it out of Sammer still that he's got baller potential. Nick Saban gave him high praise about being the best slot corner in the draft last year. So I think Youngin's going to come on and he's going to play really well, and he has been. But I think for St. Juice and Manuel Forbes, it's the quintessential term. You have to unf yourself, and you know what that is. And they have been screwed up the last uh, three 3 years with St. Juice, which St. Juice showed some promise in his rookie year before he got hurt, and he's not dumb. So I'm not going to say Benjamin St. Juice is just stupid. He just he panics. Um, when he plays a really good receiver, we saw against Keenan Allen, it was 4th and 3. He had the leverage. They put him in a good spot, and he just panicked and locked up and hooked Keenan Allen. You can't have that happening. Emmanuel Forbes, I don't believe his coaching staff believes in him. He had an interception against Carolina a couple weeks ago, but that was beamed right to him. Other than that, he really hasn't played that much. So that shows you the confidence that they had in him. I really just want us to call New England and be like, hey, y'all aren't going to be good for the next 3 years. Can we have Christian Gonzalez? We'll trade you Emmanuel Forbes and send you a 5 and call it a good day. But yeah, and Emmanuel Forbes, in all fairness to him, he it's not his fault for being drafted here. It's the old regime. But ever since he got here, he has not been embraced by the fan base. And I think that's done a lot for his mentals as well. I mean, nowadays, folks are like, they're always on social media and he's trying to prove us wrong. I'm like, just shut up and play, dude. I don't need to hear how you gonna prove me wrong. Just show me and prove me wrong. But they can't get right. St. Jude, I have more hope for. I think he's better at a number 2. He can't be your number 1 guy, especially getting ready to go into the media schedule, getting ready to go up against C.D. Lamb and A.J. Brown, and then we still got Malik. Would you be our neighbors with you guys tomorrow? So we just can't have that stuff happen.
Of course not. So, what are the X factor or X factors on offense for the Commanders and the X factor on defense?
The X factor on offense, I'm not going to say what going to say because that's the contrarian in me. I will go. The X factor is Brian. We saw him last in week 2 against y'all. Had a good game. Didn't get to the end zone, but I think if he's healthy and he totes that rock, it's going to open the game up for Jaden Daniels to ball out. And I think he can be an X factor. Austin Eckler, we still owe you guys a kickoff return for a touchdown because that was bull jive. That he got that call back in week 2. So I think those two running backs, those are going to be X factor. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. On defense, it it's going to be Frankie Luvu. If he's healthy, he can create some chaos, man. Number 4 in Burgundy and Gold has been a obvious player that everybody kind of liked coming into this season, but I don't think we thought he was going to have this big of an impact as he had. Like I said, he's like a poor man's Micah Parsons. They line him up all over. They blitz him. They'll send him in the A gap and everything. They'll blitz to set the edge as well. So Frankie Louvu will be my X factor on the defensive side of the ball.
And then going up against the Giants, your X factor for the Giants and on offense and defense.
Mr. Rogers asked me best, would you be my neighbors? I think it's Malik Neighbors, man. He had a hell of a game against us last time around. So I think that he can do the same thing. He's going to be up there at home in front of his peoples, we hope. And, so I give Malik Neighbors a nod there. If not, I know Tracy's coming out of concussion protocol, and he had a good game. So one of those two guys, but I'd go with Malik Neighbors because of our susceptibility to the pass sometimes. On defense, I always tell you, if Thibodeau's healthy, I always worry about him, but I think it's Dexter Lawrence. This time around, I'll go with Big Dexter Lawrence. He's going to clog up that hole, and, isn't he like leading the league in sacks, or he's like up near the top in
Ooh,
sacks or
9
something like
sacks
that?
leads the league.
He leads the league in sacks?
Yep.
Yeah. Holy crap! Yeah. So, when you got that much beef coming at you, Lord have mercy. Dexter Lawrence, excuse me, is my X factor for the New York Football Giants.
Okay. And finally, where can people find you and what you do?
You can find me on the Warpath here on YouTube. You can find me right there at Sanchez405 on all social medias, X, Instagram, all that stuff. So I'll be streaming the game tomorrow, and come on in and just say you're repping New York, and that Big Blue in the Bronx sent you here.
Yeah, of course. So we always thank Corey for coming on, taking time out of his morning, and whatever he's doing, he always makes time to come on the show, and it's always a movie. So make sure you follow Sanchez405. Make sure you check him out on YouTube and do all the good stuff. Of course, again, he'll be streaming the game. As for this show, like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Share this out on Apple Podcasts. Do all the good stuff. Once again, we appreciate you guys, and we'll be back for a recap pod